and that was definitely a very long and beefy uh topic section. So now we're going to move on to conversations with our younger selves, which I think correlates pretty well with mental health too. Because depending on how like your childhood was, there are a lot of things you could probably say to yourself, which I know for me, I've learned a lot since being younger, which I hope we all have, but like there's been a lot that has happened in my life through relationships, as we've talked about, and through life experiences that have thrown me for a loop, and like I feel like younger Leah could have uh younger Leah could have dealt with and probably had a friend or wanted a friend. She definitely wanted a friend, but there are a lot of things that could have been said to my younger self that probably could have made it better, which I don't know what that necessarily could be, which I guess that's now why we're talking about it. What would we say to our younger selves? And I feel like the best way to do this is to bracket off an age. So, like, why don't we start at 6? What would you say to your 6-year-old self? Which I mean, whoop de doo, you've only been on this earth for 6 years, but like, what were you, I guess, Laura, what were you doing when you were 6, and what would you say to your 6-year-old self?
6. That's like, I'm trying to
Trying to
remember.
even remember being that young? I can
I
bump up
know,
the
it
age if you
was so
want.
long ago.
Do you want me to bump up the age?
No, because I'm not gonna remember anything either. I'm gonna have struggle with the next one, with the next category.
Yeah. See,
Um,
I even said that I was probably gonna have more to say than you were.
yeah, because I don't have that many memories. I'm really bad at memorizing stuff, especially with my life. Probably because I don't really think about it too much. So maybe that is like an issue that's like I just don't know of. Maybe. But 6, I mean, I guess a little bit at that time, like maybe just be more confident in myself because 6, that's like kindergarten, first grade, something on there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've always struggled with from K through 12. I've always been uh bullied. I have the microaggression because I'm Asian, especially since,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm like it was me and one other. That was only in high school. Like, so in elementary, it was me and my sister. So I don't think I had any Asians in my whole entire elementary. Thinking about it, so I was definitely bullied because the stereotypical stuff about being an Asian. So I just be more confident because that's definitely what kind of made me have the identity crisis. I mean, I didn't remember, but my parents would tell me like I go home all the time just cry because of like this one kid would always like say mean things, not about being Asian. Well, he did, but not specifically. He'll just sometimes just pick on me, and I don't think he liked me, but it's like it's just he didn't like me. I didn't like
Yeah.
him, but it always have so just be more confident in myself because that definitely was a starting point as to why I had that identity crisis with being Asian, and I should have spoken up more. But obviously, at 6, you didn't really think about it at that time.
Yeah.
I could have punched him though and not get in trouble. But anyway,
I guess okay, so we're gonna talk about when I was 6. Like, for me, and this is where you and I differ a little bit. Like, I remember a lot. Like, even I have a really d- depending on what it is, like I have a lot of core memories. I'll put it that way because, daily things like where's my phone, where's my wallet, I'll forget that. Or if like you told me a sentence or like something, if you told me something yesterday, I'm not going to remember it today. Like it's a pick and choose. But like there are a lot of things that have happened in my childhood, my adolescence, my teenage years, whatever, that are like considered core memories. And it's all, some of them are like interesting, some of them are just stupid things. Like I remember something that someone said to me in 4th grade and I will never forget it. Um, like I remember the specific day, I remember the specific sentence. My parents have always said that I was fantastic at memorizing things, which is why they expect me to do well in school, which is funny because I didn't do that well in high school. Not that I was like failing in high school, but I really just wasn't trying. I probably could have done really well. I have a good memory, like for life changing and certain memories. I can remember things pretty well. So like going back to like 6 years old, I remember out if we're talking about like first grade, there's this kid in my class who liked me and would ask me questions about being Chinese like all the time. And here I am, like little Lottie Da Leah, doesn't really know that much about my identity. It was funny because he had invited me to his birthday party to Chuck E. Cheese. I was the only girl there. It was all
Mm.
boys from my class, and then there's his neighbor who was a girl there too, but we were the only two girls. It was kind of funny. Um, that's a core memory. And I just remember him asking me questions like about like Chinese culture and about me, and I'm like, I don't know. And I didn't really think about it till I was older, like those conversations, even though they're like just few little sentences, because you got to think about it, it's like 6-year old saying this, so it probably
Yeah.
wasn't very intelligently said, but it's like I think about it now and I'm like, I didn't like talking about being adopted until I got to college, like to fully in depth go into it and think about it like I did. Because, like, until we met our one friend and started the Asian organization at Millersville, I really didn't think about it. I didn't like thinking about it. I didn't even like talking about it. Because, like, my parents would always have those times where they'd say, like, oh, it's okay to talk about it if you have any questions. I was so uncomfortable. Like, I don't think I realized how uncomfortable I was because I just shut it down without, like, really caring. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
interested. But I didn't connect how like probably internally I was uncomfortable to talk about it and I just didn't want to acknowledge it. And even little Leah, who had her 6-year-old crush from first grade, asking her these questions, she's just I honestly just asked like would answer them like I don't know. Um because I didn't know, but I didn't think too much of my identity because all my childhood life I saw myself as a white kid,
Yeah.
which you can tell very differently in pictures. I can look back at pictures and be like, oh, it's a little Asian girl. But like my personality and the way I saw myself was white.
Mm-hmm.
Imposter syndrome. But, and I feel like that goes a little bit into our imposter and adoption thing. But that's just how I saw myself. Honestly, if I were to like go back in time into my first grade room, I would first pick up my little self. Just cause.
Oh.
And I'd just be like, you know, Leah, it's okay. Like, if you don't want to talk about your adoption, but I mean, you are adopted. That sounds really sad the way I say that, but it's
Yeah.
like, I feel like talking about like my identity and actually, because you know, we're at that stage in time where like we're integrating heavier topics into kids' education. Like, we're talking about like LGBTQ topics and like marginalized identity, POC, history topics. Like, we're slowly easing these into children's brains to integrate it so that they can talk about it more in depth and a more serious setting later in life. I feel like little Leah should have been more attuned to that when she was younger. I feel like I could have talked to her about it, been like, yeah, your parent, and not saying my parents didn't do a good job with it, but like, I feel like hearing it from them would have been different hearing it from someone who looked like me.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had plenty of those conversations with people who look like me who have said negative things about adoption and whatnot, of like, oh, you weren't wanted, oh, your parents left you on the side of the road and all that. But I feel like if I would have sat down or had the opportunity to sit down and have that type of conversation with my younger self where I'm slowly easing it in, maybe I wouldn't have shut it down at such a young age. And maybe I wouldn't have waited till I was 18 or 19 to actually think about who I was and to fully come full circle to realize that, oh, I am Asian. Because, like, even in high school, I started to realize it. It's like, okay, I'm not, we're not white anymore. Not
Yeah.
that we ever were, but like my personality slowly began to shift in high school just a little bit, and then it really shifted in college because I can like you can find me now like going out of my way to eat like kimchi or Asian food and whatnot and trying to indulge myself in culture versus when I was younger, I'm like, give me some fucking spaghetti or something. Like it's just very different.
Yeah, it definitely is, and it's hard to accept, especially at that young age, because you can be told like, "Oh, you're Chinese, you're adopted," and it's like you're like, "Oh, yeah, I know," but you don't understand the full extent of it just yet at that moment. Um, because like you said, like I had that. Well, I don't really remember too much about being around that age, but it's like it didn't hit me until uh middle school, where it's um like I wasn't bullied constantly for throughout the whole K through 12. It would just be on and off. But middle school was definitely when it's like some of it, like the more memories of it happening occurred. Because it's middle school. It's like people
Hmm.
are like not saying middle school. Well, actually, yeah, I will say middle school's probably where the most bullying happens. Just in my case, because like it's mostly happened in middle school. I could think of it. Like
Hmm.
I did, it wasn't like physical stuff, of course. It was just emotional stuff. Um, but it's like it's definitely like you start to because you're a teenager you start coming into
Hmm.
terms with like, oh, I am different. And it's like I have a really memory of when I was in middle school, like I'd be washing my hands, like there's a mirror sometimes in front of you. I like
Yeah.
look down, wash my hands, I'll look up, and it's like i'm not I'm like spooked in a way a little bit, like internally I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I'm not white, because like I'll look at myself and I'll be like, oh, huh, it's an Asian. Oh, that's me. It's a mirror. It's kind of like,
Oh, it's an
it's
Asian.
like, oh, it's like that disconnect. It's like,
Me too, though. Me every day in the
yeah,
mirror. Oh, it's an
Asian.
Asian.
It's a disconnect. It's like I know I'm Asian, but it's like my self image of me in middle
Yeah,
school. It's like I have the dark hair, I have the dark eyes, I have the
but my
skin.
personality
It's
is
like
so
it's
far gone
almost
from
like a
that.
filter where it's like for me, it's like
Yeah,
I my self image was like a lighter skin, and then when I looked at myself, I'm like, oh, I got a much rounder face than I thought. My skin's darker than I
yeah,
thought. My eyes, they don't look like everyone else's. So it like surprised me when I looked in the mirror. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm not white.
yeah.
Yeah, to
It
put it in a
it
sense.
it's something. I feel like identity is a big thing, a part of our both of our experiences, just because
Hmm.
our our identity is so complex. It is such a gray area of the I'm not white enough, I'm not Asian enough, um, inner battle constantly, and it's never gonna end. Sad to say, I feel like no matter how many times you can be true to yourself, it's never gonna fully end. Like there's always gonna be something that's gonna come up, and it's not gonna. It's never gonna end. That's how it is. Not saying that you can't come to terms with it fully, but like there are plenty of other Asian Americans who have the same struggle, whether they are adopted or they have Asian parents and just don't know the language or whatever. They feel I've heard it from plenty of people where they say they feel that they're in that gray area of like, I'm not white enough, but I'm not Asian enough. You're not on either polar end. You're stuck in the middle of like, dang, what is my identity as someone who
Yeah.
has the personality of a white person, or maybe not necessarily white, of a more, I don't know how to put it, but you're not
A
in
hybrid.
connection. Yeah. I'm a hybrid car.
Hybrid.
That's what I thought of. Um, but also I would have just given my younger self a hug because I feel like even though I'm 6, it's like I said, I've had a lot of life experiences that I could honestly write a book about. I've tried. Right, that's a whole nother story. I wrote a book about my life up until a point, and it probably would be a lot better now because I'm more mature now because I wrote it from a teenager's point of view. But then writing about it now because I've had time to reflect and think on it deeply, it would be a lot different. So I should write a book, maybe. Maybe. Just maybe. But I would give myself a hug because it, not saying I wouldn't hug myself at any other time, but like I have to brace myself. I feel like 6 is like the still the pleasant time in my life before things start to get worse. Because I'm not gonna say my life was like god awful, but I'm not gonna say it was rainbows and sunshines. It was
Yeah.
a lot of constant struggling, and in my 6-year-old years, I would just be like, if I were to see myself, enjoy your time that you have before the hard part starts. Because
Yeah.
I guess jumping to 13 to talk to my 13, um, 14-year-old self, that's when it got hard for me because that's when I was getting bullied a lot. There's this one girl in particular that, and this goes back to like my own identity and like my own trauma, the trauma queens, but it goes back to my trauma of like making connections with people that I'm so desperate to have a connection with someone even if they're not good for me. And this is one thing that I'll respect from my mom is that she did know what she was talking about because like I wanted to be friends with a lot of people and especially like the new students that come in to our school because there's only like 20 of us in a class because I went to Catholic school. So it's like, okay, there's a new person, let me be friendly. And it seemed like this girl had no friends coming in, so I wanted being I'm just a nice person. And I'm not saying that to brag, but I have a big heart. I have a lot of empathy and I give a lot to people who do not necessarily replicate because I like to make other people happy over myself. Again, people pleasing tendency. Maybe it's not always the healthiest, but I care deeply a lot about people, even if I barely know them, even at that young of an age. So, I wanted to be friends with this girl. And then she ended up being one of my main bullies in middle school. And my mom had told me she's bad news and told me to stay away from her. But my big heart was like, it's not right for me to just abandon her because then who else is she going to have? And she had a lot of like personal troubles at home too because I would sit on the phone with her and just she'd tell me about like how her relationship with her grandparents because her parents weren't necessarily in the picture, so her grandparents were raising her. So she'd tell me her complexities with that, and then it was a lot. Like she was going through a lot, and at the same time she was still bullying me. Like I remember so many instances of her bullying me. She wasn't my sole person who only bullied me, but she was like the main one. And I remember one thing that she had said to me was I had pigtails in that day. Weird for a 13-year-old to maybe have pigtails, but I had little low pigtails or whatever. I came into school. My mom just dropped me off. It's like the beginning of the morning. I go to the bleachers because we'd sit on the bleachers before the teachers come get us and take us to the classroom. The first thing she says to me is I look like a lesbian because I have pig. That's the first thing I hear that day. And I remember that specific one. I don't remember all the other ones because they were just kind of the stereotypical like, oh, you're ugly. Oh, you're like overweight or like all the regular typical ones that most teens would hear. And another instance which I don't remember as clearly um is that there was a time where we were all eating lunch and she was sitting across from me. I don't know what she was doing. She was just saying some really mean stuff and basically pushing my buttons. It takes a lot for me to get to a point where I like just blow up. But I blew up that day because she pushed it really far. She had said something that really hurt my feelings. I don't remember what it was, but it made me upset enough to basically grab, because we had the table cleaning stuff, so the paper towels and the spray bottle for whoever was cleaning that day sitting on the table. It made me mad enough that I picked up the paper towel roll and I chucked it at her really hard. And then she had said, "Oh, you're gonna regret that." And I just ran out of the cafeteria crying, and I just sat in the bathroom bawling my eyes out. And then the teacher came and got me and had to take me to a separate room, and then I had to explain everything. But like, I went through a lot in my teen years. Like, not necessarily teen years, but like my middle school years where I'm like, it was the prime time where my depression had started because I had some stuff going on at home. I had stuff going on at school. I could not escape it. It was like, take your pick on which one's worse.
Mm-hmm.
And that was also where, like I said, my depression started. I didn't know how to process emotions. I didn't know how to really think of myself. My self-esteem was at an all-time low because I was getting bullied at school. My mom was basically shoving grade expectations down my throat because my mom was like, I had a very difficult relationship with my mom at the time, and she had these expectations for me to get A pluses. She was kind of like the knockoff Asian tiger mom. But she had these expectations, and I felt, and my sister was a high achiever. Like, she was getting A's. She was getting A pluses, and she was getting, like, good grades on everything. I bring home a test that has a 92. The first thing that she would say is, "So why is it not a 93, and why is it not an A?" So you're saying
Isn't
that to
that
a
an
13? Huh?
A? Isn't that an A? 92?
I went to Catholic school, so the grading system was higher because Catholic school and especially in high school Catholic school, it's a college prep school. So the grading scale is higher. So if you get a 93 or above, it's an A. A
Mm-hmm.
92 to like an 80, I think it's like an 84, 92 to 84, something like that, is a B. And
Oh.
83 to like 70 something is a
Yeah.
C. And then anything below like 70 to I forget it. I honestly forget it. I remember the A because that was so far drilled into my memory.
Mm.
That 93 to 100 was an A. So if I brought home a 92 on my test, I would get asked by my mom, "Why is it not a 93?
Mm.
Why didn't you get that one more point?" It was not celebrating the fact that I had gotten a 92. And there's a lot of things going on at home, which this is just me trauma dumping now at this point. But she little 13-year-old Leah went through a lot. That was a hard time. That was
Mm.
definitely a hard time for me. I self-harmed during that time too. Um and then I had all these teachers down my throats. I had maybe this is like a lot for the first episode, but like I remember because I had to wear the school skirts because we had those stupid like wraparound kilts, and I was so depressed during the days at school sometimes that I'd have scissors in my pocket and I would just be doing it in class, slicing my arm up under my sweater. Um, and then eventually the teachers found out, and then my parents found out, and then that's how I got diagnosed with depression. And then I went through a lot of like therapists, which I've talked to you a little bit about of like I didn't like seeing therapists at that age. It's like I knew I was depressed and I needed help, but I hated spilling my guts to these people as to why it was the way it was. Because a lot of the times I would see these therapists, and one, they would not have some of them, I got that vibe of like, they didn't have my best interest in mind necessarily. It's like, okay, I'm gonna come here to spill my guts, but then you're getting your paycheck at the end. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna say what needs to be said to get the check at the end. And then especially like we tried an art therapist too, where I had seen this lady who she was she was crazy. She was probably the worst there. Actually, no. The first therapist I had was the worst therapist because I spent an hour and a half telling her my whole life story of how I led up to like getting bullied and like what was going on at home and then why I was there. And then the last thing she said to me, "You should have told the teacher." That was it. That's all she said. That's all she said during the first thing. And I was like, yeah, never seen you again. But the art therapist I saw was like kind of like one of those crazy hippie type of vibes. So she had me make a painting, or she had me make a an oil pastel piece, which I still have in my basement. And I was just like, she was like, do whatever you want to do. So I was like, okay, um, I'll do whatever I want to do. And I did a box of crayons. I bring it in and she's like evaluating this box of crayons. So she's like, so why'd you pick black for the crayon? Why'd you pick red for the crayon? And I'm like, lady, all you told me to do was draw something that I wanted. You didn't tell me I was gonna get psycho and now like analyzed on this box of crayons that I made. But that was one thing that helped though too when I was 13. I'd draw. Um, I actually drew a lot of depressing pictures during that time too, to get my feelings out because that was like another channel to get my feelings out. But to draw back to what we were talking about, what I'd say to my 13-year-old self, because I feel like my 13-year-old self didn't think it was gonna get any better. I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna live through, if I even live, I'm going to live through a personal hell of this deep feeling of depression, and I'm not gonna shake it, and it's not gonna get better. And first off, again, I would hug myself because I feel like that was like one thing I needed, just a good hug. And I would probably just sit myself down while I'm probably bawling my eyes out and tell myself it is going to be okay. Like, obviously, girl, you graduate from college, like, you have all these things coming up in your life. It is going to be okay. And you don't see that now, but you will see it eventually.
Mm-hmm.
Which, at that young of an age, it was very hard to picture what my future was going to look like when I wanted to not have a future.
Yeah. But
My,
yeah,
huh?
you made it.
Yeah, I made it. We survived.
Yeah.
I It's really weird to think about how depressed I was because I still know how bad it felt like physically because like when you're depressed, I don't have you ever been depressed? I don't mean to laugh while I'm asking that, but I realized as I was saying it when I was asking, have you ever been depressed? Because
Uh,
depending on
probably. I just don't know it.
depending on each individual, at least for me, when I would get really depressed when I was like in middle school and high school, and even just like now as an adult, sometimes when I have these like spurs of the moment where I'm like really depressed, it physically hurts your body. Like it will feel like your whole chest is cramping up.
Mm.
Like you feel like you're having a heart attack almost. Like your whole heart hurts. It feels like it's sinking into your stomach and it just hurts. And then on top of that, then you're crying. Then on top of that, then you're already like your brain hurts and everything from even trying to fathom like what emotions are running through you right now because it's nothing but bad things running through you. So then it's just like physically, mentally, and emotionally, it all hurts all at once. And honestly, and I've heard people compare depression to like a lot of things. People are like, it's like a black dog that follows me. And I'm like, I don't think it's like a black dog that follows me. I think it's a physical pain for me. Like it's
Mm.
like alter ego Leah almost. Or what's a good comparison? It's like the this is a really bad comparison. It's like SpongeBob in his abrasive side. It's not a good comparison at all, but it's like another version of me that like only
Like
comes
the
out.
switch.
Yeah. Like it will instantly switch and it's a completely different version of me. You would never even recognize me. I think you've probably only seen me like severely depressed once.
I did? When?
I think
I'm
like
sorry, I see you cry a lot. But then again, you see me cry a lot too, so
the first
we
time we're
cry a
crying and we're just wheezing.
lot. You mean the time I stopped crying to hear you because I couldn't believe it was you.
We cry like weirdos. But yeah, there's one time, like in my old house, the one with the really bad roommates, that
Mhm.
you came up to my room because I was just like not having it, and like they who shall not be named was also there,
Oh, I remember that. I
and
didn't know you were. Yeah, I kind of remember it.
I was just that was not the worst depression I've ever had, but that was like it was up there on the scale.
Mm,
Like I was feeling the chest pain because I can tell when I'm sad and I can tell when I'm depressed. Because when I'm sad, I'm just sad. When I'm depressed, it physically hurts. And then my whole thought process is flooded. Also, I don't know. Actually, I do know, but I like how I shifted from I'm talking to my 13-year-old self to we're going to talk about my depression.
I mean, it was part of your 13-year-old life.
Yeah, which that it is the root cause and I'm still dealing with it now. It's a lot more under control now than it was
Mhm.
cuz it's like again a really bad comparison. It's like getting a superpower and you don't know how to use it for the first time. Which
Deep,
it
super deep question.
not super depression. Which it really was. It's like you get these really bad like you get this physical chest pain, your thoughts are overrun, and you don't know what to do with it. Like you don't know how to turn it off. It just comes up and like overwhelms your body, and then you don't know what to do with it, especially at 13 years old. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm feeling this heavy feeling like while I'm in class in seventh grade, while I'm sitting in literature class in seventh grade.
Mhm.
Because like when I tell you I'm a whole different person, I I've gone out and I've been in public. And I did this in college too when I've had like my few like spells of like severe depression. I've had to go to class. It's like I'm sitting in class and I feel like complete crap. And like everything that everyone is saying to me, the teacher and whatnot, is going in one ear and out the other because all I'm thinking about is like my depressive thoughts and then wanting to get back in my bed and going to sleep to turn it off. So like little 13-year-old Leah, who just got this new super depression power, um, does not know how to deal with it. And I've come now 10 years later, which is bizarre to say that 13 to 23, 10 years later now, I've definitely, wow, that really just sunk in. It's like
Yeah.
10-year anniversary. But um I've definitely seen the growth from those life experiences and the many therapists and the many things that I've had to go through to get to this point of like accepting that I do have these spur of the moments, but I have enough control over my emotions and my thoughts so that they don't happen like they used to. Like, I think the last time I had one was over a year ago. No, I won't say over a year ago because some of them are less severe than others, but they haven't been that bad in a long time. And I usually snap out of them pretty quickly. How are you at 13? Enough about me. How are you at 13?
Um, well, I did want to say, I scoffed, not because she was calling you a lesbian. Not wrong with
I'm
that, or
above
anything,
this.
but that was like one of the last things I was thinking you were gonna say. So that's why I was like, because it's like it didn't even occur to me that was something that she was gonna say. So I was like, oh my gosh. So that's why I scoffed first. Wanted to just put that in there. Just saying. Um, Me at 13, so it's middle school years. I Middle school was definitely the hardest because, like I said, I it's the most memories I could think of collectively when like I have more microaggressions because of me being Asian. And I had the things again with the imposter syndrome where it's like I just be like, oh yeah, that's right. Like when I look in a mirror. Um, Middle school was the most time I cried too. So when
I'm not laughing at you crying. It's just like I'm thinking, me too.
because like uh when when you asked me like, oh yeah, I've been depressed, it's like I've been sad, but it's like I never really know like where the fine line is between depression and sadness. Because like you were saying, like everyone has different experiences, so it's like I can't say
Mhm.
exactly like, and like I don't want to obviously say like, oh I have this, because it's like maybe, but it's like I don't think I do. It's like I probably don't, but it's like I do have like really bad times, especially in middle school, where it's like I would I would just have times where it's like I'd be watching a video and it'll be a sad video. It'll be like a sad video about a dog. Then it just automatically, I don't know why. It's like then I get in that sad mood, and then all of a sudden, like the idea would pop into my head about like me being adopted. Then I just burst out crying in bed, and I go to bed crying that night. I call
Yeah.
them my once a week crying sessions. And then, uh, there was like I can't remember if it was middle school or it was high school, but it was like there was this one time where it's like oh, it actually could have been college, but it was just this random time. I was walking to a class, and then it's like all of a sudden my chest started hurting, and then I just got really sad. So then I asked the teacher, or if it was in college, I just walked to straight to the bathroom, and I just cried in the bathroom probably for like 10
Mhm.
minutes. It's like I still made it to class okay because I'd leave really early to make sure I get there in case I get stuck behind a slow walker or something. But it's like I just all suddenly it just hit me and I just started crying. So it's like I get those some every now and then. It was mostly in middle school, I guess. I did it more often. And
Mhm.
then again, I just cried myself to sleep a lot because I guess that's when it started registering in my mind like I am adopted. Like the acceptance
Yeah.
part that you were saying.
That's
Um,
interesting. Like you
yeah.
had like I went to a very predominantly white school. Like I said, I was one of few people of color in my class, but I probably was the person of color in my class. Because actually thinking about it, I think thinking about my at least in middle school, yeah, I think at least in middle school there was like two other Asians, like maybe one or two other like Hispanic people, and that was it. The rest of the kids were white, but like we were never made fun of for like our skin.
Hmm.
Like actually, I take that back. Like it wasn't done necessarily in a derogatory manner intentionally because I had that issue in middle school where like my best friend at the time would like she would call me Wang Ding. Um, and it didn't bug me at the time because I didn't think about it. And my mom would tell me, "Oh, that's so offensive. Like that is so wrong." But like at the time, I didn't know. I wasn't like I was at that
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't take it derogatively because I the way that it was being said didn't seem like it was derogative. It was like more like a playful thing. Um, and even now, like I look back on it, it's like I don't think she like I don't think that she meant it in that type of like you're Asian, here's your stereotypical Asian
Yeah.
nickname. It was more just like a playful thing because I don't think she understood the complexity of making a joke like that, and I did not understand the complexity of making a joke like that at that age.
Yeah. Yeah, that's same for me. It wasn't that many Asians, so it was predominantly white. I got
Mm-hmm.
called a chink. I also got called an Oriental, and obviously the thing like with the eyes.
Yeah.
It's like obvious, like the eyes thing bothered me more than being called a slur. Because at that time, it's like I
Hmm.
didn't know it was a slur. It's like I just didn't see it as offensive because you don't. It's just in normal like society. It's just not really like everyone knows like the N word. That's a horrible word to say, but it's
Yeah.
like you're never really educated in like Chink and Oriental. It's like so
Hmm.
growing up, it's like I'm like, what's that? Or I didn't really understand it, and people would be like, oh, it's just a word. And then I think only when coming to college, it's like I realized what it was. But it's
Hmm.
like because of like that incident that happened, like once COVID started, like that incident with
Hmm.
Millersville, it's
Yeah.
that's when it like kind of got to me. I'm like, oh, those are offensive words, but it's like it's
Yeah.
still just something that's not talked about, and it's like obviously I don't want to be called them, but it's like in my head, it's like it's not that bad of a word, even though it is a bad word, but because it's not normalized, it's like I just don't see it that way yet.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and definitely in middle school, I was like, okay, like it wasn't
Yeah.
like
I
I'm
mean,
called it all the time. I only heard it once, like both words one time during the whole entire 3 years. So it's like it wasn't like they were constantly saying it or anything. But it's definitely like now I'm older, it's like I realize
hmm.
the like how harmful it is. But during that time, it's like I wasn't harmed. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's just a word. And it didn't really make sense to me at 13
Hmm.
or middle school.
Yeah. I Middle school was
And
just
I don't
weird for
think
me.
Yeah. And I don't think they really meant it in a mean way either. It's like because at that time it's like middle schoolers, they want to fit in.
Hmm.
They're also coming to terms because they're coming of age. I don't think they realized uh what exactly it is. Because again, it was not and still is not talked about as much as why they're really bad words. And it's like, I think at that time, it's like they didn't mean it in a harmful way. They just saw it on the internet and, like, oh, and then just said it. And it's like, they didn't say it directly to me. It was
Hmm.
like, I just heard it through like all the, oh,
Yeah.
through everyone. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think they meant it in a harmful way, but obviously anything said can be now taken.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely, it's kind of, again, it's kind of like a gray area because like I feel like even if kids are saying it in a derogatory term, they don't understand, or at least at that time, they don't understand the severity of how bad it was and how offensive it was. It's not on the same level as calling someone ugly or fat.
Yeah.
Like it is on it's on a whole nother level of offensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which depending on your area, we live in a Laura, you and I live in a very conservative area of central PA.
Yep.
So it's not hard to come by in this area. I'll put it that
Yeah,
way.
for
Without
sure.
getting into politics, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
But life, honestly, like I'm just sitting here thinking about all the life experiences that I've had. The ones that I like remember, like I could do a whole episode on like key memories that I have that are either interesting or things that just mean a lot to me um through my life that have had an influence on where I am today. Cuz without 13-year-old Leah like struggling, 23-year-old Leah would not be here today. Same thing if I were to go back to high
Mm.
school, Leah, cuz like that's the funny thing. I got out of middle school. I graduated middle school. I got out of 8th grade and I'm like, thank the Lord, high school's going to be better. Man, did I eat my fucking words. High school was even worse. Somehow high school was worse. And as an adult, I can say I know I played a large part in making it worse for myself, which that's one thing I guess I need to learn. And and work on. Not necessarily I need to learn for new, but I need to work on not beating myself up over stupid things and reactions and whatever. Stupid things that I did in high school that resulted in like more stress on me. And like
Mm.
stupid things I said in like friendships and relationships through my high school. I need to not beat myself up over it because I'm still sitting here as a 23-year-old like who's been out of high school for a while, almost like 5 years now at like the minimum, and I'm still sitting here beating myself up over something I did in freshman year of high school or sophomore year or junior
Mm.
year or senior year. Because it was always something, and I know that a lot of it was me. Um, One thing that I've realized now when I sit back and think about high school is like I definitely was at like the peak of not being able to process my emotions and know how to form relationships with people because I was so deathly scared of losing people. Again, the trauma. I didn't know how to handle my
Yeah.
trauma. I didn't know how to handle my emotions. And for that reason, my relationships with people suffered. I I got a lot of friends and I lost them very quickly because of my lack of being able to process my emotions and connections with people. Sadly, which at the time I was like, why does everyone hate me? Why did why does it feel like people are so against me? It's like you did that, to put it bluntly, and maybe this is still me beating myself up over it partially. It's like, Leah, you did that to yourself. In the kindest way to say you just didn't handle it that well and people didn't understand where you were in your life and why you were saying that because they were the same age as you. They probably couldn't understand to the fullest why you were like that, and it was better to just ditch it than to deal with it. It's a very
Yeah.
And then in addition, in high school, like, again, depression was bad. Again, that's a whole nother story. Story time, I went to the mental hospital. Like, I also I developed anxiety attacks my senior year. So for some reason, out of nowhere, which they were worse than they should have been, I would have an anxiety attack. Like my heart felt like it was
Mm.
pumping out of my chest and I could not breathe, and I would start crying, and it was just like the worst thing. And I feel like thinking back now, people probably thought I faked it. People probably thought I faked fainting too, because at the same time, I just wasn't taking care of myself either. I never took care of myself that well in high school as I should have. Um, but that's a whole nother story. Again, I should just write a book on my experiences. But teenage Leah went to the mental hospital, and one core memory that I really remember is my best friend before him and I kind of had like a falling out. Like my best friend from middle school, after before we fell out. But yeah, he had taken the time to call me while I was in the mental hospital while he was at his track meet just to check in on me. And that was probably one of the nicest things I had in my life. Core memory.
Mm.
Um, but something I would say to my high school self, kind of shifting the age a little bit, is that like, yes, it feels like the world is falling apart and you really just want to be done with it, but it's going to get better and give you more opportunities to learn because obviously college wasn't 100% either, but it was better than high school. It was better than middle school. And look, we're here today.
That's true.
I, I feel like this is so heavy for like a first episode thing. This is like more
It's
than
fun. It is.
Like,
But oh well.
that's all I was like, okay. See, when I was thinking about these topics, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be cute, it's gonna be fun. And then now when we're actually recording
Mhm.
it and I'm like sitting here, I'm like, dang, these are a lot more deep than I actually anticipated. It's not like, dang, Leah, you lost that game. You're gonna win the next one, or you didn't do too well on your papers back then, but you're gonna do better on them. No, it's all emotional trauma.
I mean,
I wouldn't
that
be a
is where we get
trauma
our name
queen if it
from.
wasn't.
Exactly.
See, this is again
Yep.
going back to the astrology thing. It's the Scorpio in me of overpouring, but then still kind of holding some of it back.
Mm.
But
I just also like how we were talking and like earlier you were saying like, yeah, you didn't like talking about your feelings, you didn't like talking to people about certain stuff. Now we're posting it on the internet,
which
which
it's
that's
true.
fine.
I'm even still like that,
It's
where,
needed.
and again, it kind of goes back to what they say about Scorpios, mysterious or whatever. And like I've told you, it's like no one person, not even you, know me 100%. Because I feel like that's kind of like my
Yeah.
safety mechanism to hide parts of myself from certain people depending on what it is, because I hide certain parts. Now this just seems like a therapy session. I am so
Exactly.
self, to be honest with myself and on the record, like I know for a fact that I hide a lot of myself, parts of it from certain people, because I don't I'm not on that level of trust with them to know how they're going to react if I say this part of myself or share this part of myself. Because I am so
Mhm.
deathly scared of losing people. That's how bad my attachment and my trauma can be sometimes, which I'm working through right now as I'm out of college and I'm like I've had more time to process like things that have happened. Like I'm working on it. We're slowly coming to terms with things and working on it. But like I still have that issue of I'm scared of people leaving. So I'm going to hide
Yeah.
parts of myself as a safety mechanism.
Yeah. I think that's just something that we can work on because and we'll just carry on with our lives because it's just some because of the traumatic thing that we went through as babies. But it's like
Yeah.
that can't be. I mean, we can cope with it, but that's just something that we'll just sadly have to carry for our life.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Younger Leah definitely got the brunt force of it. And now older Leah just has to pick up the pieces of it and fix I shouldn't say fix. Make sense of things that should have been made sense of a long time ago. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, cope with.
Coping, yes.
Hmm.
Younger Leah did not have proper coping mechanisms because she was a little bit resistant to coping mechanisms because I feel like, as bizarre as it sounds, like I was depressed and I had a lot of like weird feeling. Not the oh really, but it's like I knew I was depressed and like I hated it, but at the same time some of it like some part of me liked it, which is weird. Like,
Yeah.
and maybe I think the reason I liked it, partially, as bizarre as it sounds again, is because as bad as it hurt, it still showed me that I had some sense and some feeling left in me instead of saying continuously, I'm numb to having emotions.
Yeah.
Because
That's
I think that's why. That's the only reason I can think of like, okay, why would younger me like feeling pain this hurtful? Because even now as an adult and I feel it, it's like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm dying. Why would
Mhm.
I want to feel that when I'm younger? But then to be fair, like I said, when I was younger, I felt like I was numb, like everything was just running over me like like an ocean. Um and wasn't really sinking in, but at least that showed me that I had some feeling left. It's it's something. I think my younger self had should get a gold star or something. Honestly, wait. This goes into another topic, but like if you could give awards to like yourselves through the years, an award I would give to like my high school self it is being actually I'd give like a resiliency award to a lot of my different years. Like 13 to 18-year-old Leah, all of them would get like a resiliency award. Great job hanging in there.
Hmm.
But
I don't know what I'd give myself.
I mean, there's plenty of awards. That should be like a whole nother topic though. What awards would you give yourself through the years?
Hmm.
But I think I feel like just overall to kind of close it, conversations with yourself when you think about that type of topic, again, for lack of better terms, humbles yourself. It makes you actually think deeply about your past, which is something that people like to run from. Um, I don't run from my past. I think about it a lot. But it gives you time to think about it and actually see the opportunities of where things might have been better, where you could have done better, but you didn't know because you were a lot less mature and further in your life. So it's
Hmm.
interesting to think back on. Also, I
Yeah.
realized I probably portrayed my life as a absolute dumpster fire, which it wasn't a complete dumpster fire. I did have some good times, but a lot of it was flying under the radar of like it wasn't 100%.
Hmm.
But what do you think?
Um, yeah, like during going through the stuff, it's like you don't think about it. And obviously when you think about it, your mentality is going to be different than when you
Mm-hmm.
think about it when you come back to it in the future. Definitely, when I was like going back to the topic, 'cause I don't think I ever answered the question. About 13, it's like I did mention like how all that stuff happened. I would say I should maybe talk about it more. I don't think I should get help. Maybe I should have, but like at least talk about it to someone. Just talk about like the feelings of the identity crisis and have
Mm-hmm.
like the feelings of like why do I all of a sudden get sad and like why do
Yeah.
I all of a sudden want to burst out crying? Why do I always have these like sudden things?
Mm-hmm.
And actually it kind of happened today, like on the drive back to campus today. I was
Dang, I gotta go back to school.
well, so I so you know this about me. I like listening to sad music, not because I'm sad. Well, when I am sad, I like listening to sad music.
Okay.
But also
But
just
me
in
too,
general,
though.
yeah. But in general, sad music sometimes just it's very calming. So even though it's like sad, it's I like listening to it because it's sad. The one last time I tried listening to a song, the um it was like the song In the Stars or something. And all of a sudden, like my grandma that passed away like 2 years ago popped in my head. I just started crying driving. So I had
Yeah.
to change the music because obviously I can't be doing that and driving. And then today I was listening to I Wish You Knew, the song that I showed you the one time by
Mm-hmm.
Volt Boys, I think. I had that playing and it's really calming and relaxing. But like I actually listened to the lyrics, like this one part, and it's like I just all of a sudden started crying. So I'm like driving from the sheets to school, so you know it's about
Yeah.
5 minutes, and I'm just bursting out
Mm-hmm.
crying. I'm like, huh. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I know now not to listen to sad music while driving because obviously it's not safe. But
Yeah.
also it's like, why do I all of a sudden get like these flashes in my head of like a memory
Mm-hmm.
that's like I know is gonna like make me cry and stuff. So it's like it just happens. So maybe I should have talked to someone in middle school about it. Um, and then maybe get like the root cause of it and something. Maybe I should now too, but we'll see. Um,
Yeah. It.
and then for high school, it's like so middle school I should have talked to someone, and then high school it's like it wasn't that bad in high school for me because a lot of the
Can't relate.
microaggressions were gone. And then it was for high
Mhm.
school, it was mostly just like, this typical things everyone asks, what college are you going to? What are you going to do in the future? It's like I even have a little
Mhm.
problem with asking that now. And it's like I'm a senior in college. It's like I don't really have an exact answer. To be honest, I didn't
Let's
even think
say
I
you're
lasted
about
so
to
long.
adult soon.
Exactly. I didn't
You're
think I
about to
lasted so long.
graduate. You're gonna adult soon. You're gonna join my world.
Yeah, so in high school, I'd like should have thought more about it. And then I still don't really think about it because it's like in middle school, not saying I was depressed because like I can't say that because I was just sad. In middle
Hmm.
school, I'd always, excuse me, I never see myself graduating college because it's like I just didn't view myself as that. I didn't think I'd live
Hmm.
past college, not because I was gonna like do anything that would harm myself, but it's like I always had like that daydream or night or like
Hmm.
dreams just in general. I'd always think of like oh, I'm gonna die in a car crash. I'm gonna die, like, I'm gonna get killed. Or, I'd always have like this bad things,
Yeah.
dreams or daydreams happening to me where it's like I don't live
Hmm.
to the future. So it's like I never really thought of a future. So now that I'm like actually
Yeah.
gonna graduate, it's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I didn't think about too
Hmm.
much.
Yeah.
So
Well,
better planning.
hey, I mean, you and I are both here. I graduated. You're almost graduated. You're almost done. We're about to adult. It's a whole new phase. Like once I hit 25, it's like, okay, then it's actually gonna be my quarter life crisis.
I'll send you a quarter every day.
Once I hit 25, I feel like
Actually, that'll be expensive.
which yeah, a quarter a day. I can make $1 in less than a week. But
I'll send you a quarter on your birthday. I did that to my sister on PayPal.
it's just like it's weird when you think about your past and then where you think you are now, it's like you can see the change. And then I
Def-
feel and like you were saying, it's like when you're younger, you don't see it until you actually are there.
mhm.
So it's like even now I'm like, oh my god, I just started my job. Oh my god, I'm like getting into that age where I'm like probably gonna date and marry someone soon. No, I'm gonna have kids soon, like probably. Not anytime soon, but like it's in the realm of like the next few years probably before I'm 30. Like and I'm like the next 7 years probably. That's like it's coming up.
Mhm. Yeah, it's definitely something. It's like
Like
I
I
don't
don't
know
see
why, but
myself as a mom right now. Like I
yeah,
can't see myself as a mom. I can't even see myself married right now.
yeah.
But I
I
mean,
don't
of
even see
course,
myself as a 22-year-old. Like I'll see like I don't know why. Like I'll be scrolling on like I don't know. Like it's not Tinder, but it's like it'll be something as like where like you easily swipe something. And like I'll see people's age and I'm like, "Oh,
how'd you make it
18."
that far?
Huh?
I'm like,
Oh,
I'm thinking of it too, because like when I've been on dating apps and I like see people that are like 30, 28 to 30, I'm like, how'd you make it this far in life? Like, tell me your life, tell me your secret.
okay, we have different ideas. But but I would be like, "Oh, 18, that's fine." But then I'm like, "Wait, I'm 22, that's weird." So then I see people that's like 22 on the app. I'm
Laura
like,
out
"Oh,
here
you're too
being a
old."
cougar.
I'm like, "Fuck, that's me."
I don't think you heard what I said, but I was like, Laura out here being a cougar.
They're of age though.
Yeah,
But yeah, it's like I just don't see myself as 22.
yeah,
Again, it could just go with the thing is I don't see myself this old. I definitely
yeah,
don't act it too.
yeah. It just, it depends. I
Mhm.
mean, to each their own. That's all I'm gonna say. But I think I think we've covered this topic well. I think we're probably made the podcast long enough. We kept it beefy today.
This one
Um,
has been just this one recording's been an hour.
yep. Maybe we'll make this its own episode. We'll see. But well, if you made it this far, thank you. Congrats, you made it this far. If we're talking to no one, well, future Lauren Leah who's listening to this, I hope you got a show.
Girl, I'm gonna watch back this. I'm gonna be like, what was I talking about?
I know, I'm gonna be sitting here thinking, like, while I'm editing this, like, why did I say that? But then again, like we said, it we ramble. Just
Yeah.
ramble whatever's on our mind. But I guess we're gonna close it out. I guess we'll see y'all in the next episode if you want to stick around.
Yay.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
But he did rush well, he be much. Now gotta make my top, he did rush. The kind money.